This week I happened to be on Facebook getting myself into trouble. And I happened to see something posted by Stephen, my brother-in-law, Ray's brother and Gloria's son. The posting was pretty simple, pretty easy. It was a quotation by Thelma Davis. And I actually Googled Thelma Davis, and I don't know who she is. I'm sorry. But the saying that she came up with, or that he posted, was, yes to happiness means learning to say no to people who stress you out. Yes to happiness means learning to say no to people who stress you out. Now, I realize that a lot of people probably like that. Some people have a hard time learning to say no. Some of us are pretty good at saying no. But we all want to be happy. Don't we? Wendy, you want to be happy, right? And Jerry, you want to be happy. I mean, that's what Christmas is all about. Making the children happy for sure, but finding peace, love, and joy and happiness. So I suppose this little dictum, this little pithy saying might really be useful if happiness is the same thing as not having stress in your life. But I wonder if the absence of stress is the same thing as real happiness or blessedness or joy or delight or even bliss. Now please hear me, I'm not suggesting that we should keep on taking a load of you-know-what from a lot of folks. And what I am saying is that we might want to consider this notion that we should say no to any and every inconvenience and every stress. Because I wonder if perhaps some inconveniences, some challenges, some additional burdens might just have a little blessing. Perhaps even a little piece of heaven hidden deep inside. Consider our gospel lesson today. Joseph was dealt a plate load of stress. Mary, the woman he was engaged to marry, became pregnant, and it clearly wasn't Joseph's child. Now we might want to consider that in that day and time, for all intent and purposes, Joseph and Mary were already married. They just weren't living together yet. Imagine getting married before living together. Who would have thought? But this betrothal thing was legally binding. So this story is familiar to most of us. We've grown up hearing the story about Mary and Joseph and about Joseph's dream. But I want us to consider a moment of how big of a blow that had to be for Joseph. Think about it. The person that you're married to, or the person you've been living with, drops a bombshell in your lap. They've gotten pregnant and you weren't anywhere around. Or they said yes to something that will change your life and their life without ever consulting you first. They've done something that will damage your image, bring shame on your good name, perhaps even cause you to lose your job or make it very hard for you to find a job, all because of what someone else did. And this thing is not something that you can hide away. After all, it's going to start showing pretty soon. And it's something that you will face the rest of your life. So Joseph had a decision to make. He could have said no to this thing, this stress, or he could say yes. but then he would have to deal with the consequences of something that was not his own making. Which way should he go? What should he do? What might you do if the shoes were on your feet? Today, I'd like to take a look at Joseph's response to see what we might learn by his example. First, we need to recognize that Joseph didn't make a rash decision. Now, the story's really short, but it's real clear that he did not go off half-cocked. He took time to think things through. In fact, he obviously decided to sleep on it. I wonder how many times we've responded without thinking things through, without waiting until we can respond perhaps with a clearer head, or at least a little more compassion in our hearts. Second, we are told that Joseph was a righteous man. That is, he tried to live his life in a way that was honorable. It means that he sought to do what was right rather than what was expedient. Joseph didn't search for the easiest answers. He searched for a compassionate answer. In this case, he considered the response that might be best for everyone. A response that would allow him to grieve over the loss of Mary, his wife, and perhaps move on, perhaps find another wife. And at the same time, protect Mary, at least as much as possible, to kind of keep the embarrassment to a minimum, and perhaps even save her life. Because in those days, being pregnant without being married was a stonable offense. Third, we might want to consider this dictum, this saying, a little more closely. Is saying no to any and all stress the right approach? Before we answer no, we might just want to discern whether or not the challenge before us is a God thing. Joseph was open to a different understanding of the situation, to hearing a different point of view. In this case, the message coming from an angel. He was willing to hear that message, even if it challenged him to be even more gracious than he naturally was inclined to be. Now, I realize that we don't have angels at the ready, just ready to whisper to us in our dreams at night, guiding us on the way that we should go and the decisions we should make. But we do have good, should I dare say, godly people we can turn to. We do have a few of those around us. There are those who we can trust to give us the God's to honest truth, advise us in a way that might be more faithful. Perhaps we might consider what counsels, what advisors we tend to listen to most in our lives. And I'll give you a little clue here. If the one you turn to advises you to give it to them, that might not be the right one. If they're not challenging you to consider the other person or consider the other side of the situation, then perhaps that might not be the angel you want to listen to. Fourth, Joseph chose to set his dreams for the future aside in order to participate in something bigger, something grander, something more important. Not Joseph's dream, but God's dream. He chose to let go of his own agenda, his own choosing, in order to be involved in this crazy thing that God was doing. You know, I wonder if we really feel that we can trust God, even when the stuff that comes to us seems really bizarre. Just how many times have we said no to something that God had in mind for us because it was a little bit inconvenient, it was a little too harebrained, it was a little too embarrassing for us to consider. I wonder just how many of God's messages we've rejected in our lives, how many opportunities we've passed over to be part of something miraculous. Finally, Joseph took action. He didn't just say yes and then find a way to hedge his bets. He didn't drag his feet as they were on their way to Bethlehem, looking for a possible exit sign, wondering if maybe there was some way out of this after all. He didn't rethink his response when things got rough. He had the guts to say yes and mean it. He had the chutzpah to face that stress head on. A stress that would change his life forever. You know, Joseph could have chosen happiness. He could have said no to that stress that was presented to him. His life would have no doubt been a lot less complicated. But if he had said no, he might not have had a chance to experience heavenly bliss, true happiness. He might not have experienced the mystery and wonder of God right in his life. And no doubt he would have missed out on true heavenly joy that can only come from God. Amen.